Hey, welcome to the Treehouse Athenaeum. We're really excited you could join us today. Take a seat or maybe a walk as we jump into some topics you probably wondered about. From deciphering dreams to following your wildest intuitive hits, we've definitely got something for you. Let's get started. Hi, everybody. It's Dave, and today I'm with Daniela, and we're going to be
Hello.
talking about intuition, right?
Yes.
Yes. So we've been kind of talking to each other, trying to let each other shine in their modalities and bring about what we're what we specialize in, what we're excited to share with the treehouse, what we're bringing to the table. And whereas Jenny and Lisa have these modalities, Enneagram and astrology, that are very systematic. There's a lot of history to them. There's methodology, right? Like it's a set system. Daniela and I come from a tradition that is more intuitive based in spirituality and like even a mystical side, right? So
Mhm.
you have this very empirical approach, but then we also need that side to us that isn't easily proven, but that is that deeper knowing, which is intuition. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, and more about Daniela's experience with this growing up. So let's start with again this foil, like where they have this methodical, studied approach to astrology, enneagram. Does that how does it differ in intuitive approaches? Like, what is intuition, and does everyone have it? Is it available to everyone? Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Intuition is your inner knowing. It's that instinctual feeling or voice in your head that's guiding you. Um, it's different from Enneagram and astrology because it lives inside of you. Um, in a way, Enneagram and astrology do as well, but it's an outside system that's kind of telling you who you are. Whereas your intuition is it's not necessarily who you are, it's your guide. It is a guide in your life. And it's also your alarm system and, telling you which way to go when you're in danger, when you should be going the right way or a certain way. Whereas Enneagram and astrology can help you get there. Those tools and getting to know yourself like that will absolutely kind of fill in the gaps. Intuition is more inside.
Gotcha. So it's a part of us, right? But it's a part of us that again it acts as a guide, but it's innate, right? Like a sixth
Yes.
sense. You always hear it called like a sixth sense, and so
Yes.
we are all born with this intuitive guide because we are
Absolutely.
spirit, we are this and that. Okay, so let's talk about how do you look at intuition again? You said it's this warning system. Let's flesh that out a little more. Is it like, is it part of your soul, or you said guides? Like, is this like, a spirit guide talking to us? What do you let's define
Yeah.
intuition a bit more.
It's your, I think, connectedness
Okay.
to anything and everything. I mean, I would say everything all at once.
Okay.
Your spirit guides, your higher self, God, the universe. It is your connection, um, telling you, specifically you, where you need to be and sometimes where you're not supposed to be.
A
And
lot of the time, right? Yeah.
examples, yeah, I can think of like if you're in an area that you have no reason to be scared or afraid and the hairs on your neck go up, that's your intuition. It's trying to tell you something. Someone is trying to get your attention to be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, be on your guard, be on the lookout, something's going on." So, it doesn't always have to be an alarm system in a bad way. Sometimes
Yeah,
it can be in
right.
a good way. Sometimes
And
it can
again,
be
this is
like
an innate thing. So I think this is really good, especially for people who are new to this. You had mentioned quite a few terms there, and I know we use
yeah.
them as an umbrella term. And I think
Mhm.
this is really important to distinguish because growing up in the church, but now where I'm at, I use God interchangeably because God means everything to me. Like
Mhm.
before, it was a man in the sky and like Jesus and this set boxed principle. And now it's like the earth, the water, nature, but also the yin and yang. Like God's the tornado and the hurricane as much as he is, the hug and the mother. Like
Right.
it's so how. you said God, universe, spirit. How do we use these terms? Like how are they connected to intuition?
Yeah. So personally, because I grew up a little bit in the church too, and I would say I would say God is really what I mean. Um, but really God is nature. God
Mhm.
is, spirit. Spirit is just another term for like a higher power. Universe is another term for higher power. But I think when I say those terms, I specifically mean God, where I think others might feel more comfortable with just a higher power in general.
Yeah.
And some might see the universe as the higher power itself. Um,
So this connectedness to what's bigger, what's greater than
yes,
ourselves, right? Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
hmm
And again, like I come from a tradition now that in my life and what I've learned, like especially Buddhism has influenced me. We are God though too. Like
yes,
there's like the illusion of separation. The life that animates you and I animates everything else. And if everything comes from somewhere, it's all part of the same source, right? So that's
right,
yeah. So I use spirit a lot, but universe too. So that's okay, good. No. So what about mysticism? You hear this a lot. People talk about mysticism, and that can be really off-putting too. How would you
yeah.
define that?
So it's funny because we talked a little bit about this, and I myself had to be like, "Wait, I wanna make sure I have this right. I'm gonna Google gonna Google
What
mysticism,"
does Google say? Yeah.
because I would have described it as, something intangible that is spiritual. Like, intuition is a little bit mystical in the sense that you cannot scientifically nail down intuition,
Yeah.
in the way that you can like a computer, a computer is gonna sense a virus, send you the signal, tell you, "Hey, something's going on. We've already started shutting it down." Your intuition isn't quite as systematic, because it's like living too. Uh, but when I Googled mysticism, it was like a religious ecstasy and connection to God or the higher power or just, a connection to that knowing, and I had no idea. I was like, "Wait, I had never heard that mysticism was kind of like a feeling more so than a description of a thing."
Yeah.
So that kind of shook me a little bit because I didn't
I
know that.
and I feel like you can find the mystical in everything. Once you start
Yes,
living with that open mind, the open heart, you see the miraculous in everything, which can make anything mystical. And
absolutely.
my life is mystical by just
Mhm.
being in tune in with the flow, and I appreciate it on a different level. But then you also have these like Kabbalah and these traditions of mysticism. So there's a wide range there. But yeah, so I just want to make sure we're defining these terms for people listening in case you're not familiar with it.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so we have intuition. What does that look like? When you say we have this intuition, how are we supposed to be using it? How are we aware of it in our day-to-day lives? Like how is it applicable? Like you mentioned, like when we're in danger or like
Mhm.
when someone shouldn't get on the plane, like a Raven moment, right? Like
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
Raven.
Yes. You
Yeah.
just, like, stop.
But
If you see someone
realistically,
frozen on the subway, that's because 'cause they're having a premonition.
they're in another dimension. But no, what does intuition look like for us in our day-to-day lives?
I think it can be something really simple, like oh man, I'm trying to think of an example I just had recently where I was already getting some work done, like at my normal 9 to 5, and someone popped into my head that wasn't scheduled to be in, but I was like, "Oh, they are associated with these other people. I'm just gonna like throw them into and give them access to because you never know." And sure enough, they were coming in. That is kind of like an intuitive moment, I would
Mhm.
say, of
Simple. That
yes,
simple. Yeah.
super simple, and it's just kind of allowing those messages to come through and not discounting them, because I think
Yeah.
I could have also been like, "Oh, that's silly. Why did I think about this person? They're not on the list," and just kind of, like, move along. But there was a reason.
Yeah.
So, whether you call that a premonition, intuition, whatever, it's
Because
still
there are examples like, I'm reading this book, I'm talking about signs, and,
Mhm.
Laura Lynn Jackson is a reputable, like, known psychic medium, but she was talking about how she was at a stoplight, and her kid's in the car, and they would play a game of it. When the light turns green, she would say something, and she'd, they make it a game. But she didn't move when it turned green, and she just had an instinct to stay. And the little girl was like, Mom, why aren't you going, Mom? And a truck barreled through the red light.
Yeah.
It can be that simple, but it can also be that profound, or just meeting
Mhm.
someone where it's like something's off, right?
Yeah.
I So that's
Well,
how it
and
shows up.
yeah, and I think sometimes it doesn't even have to be mental, like, that's an example where it
Mhm.
popped into my
Often
head,
most
but
often it's not, right?
right, it
Yeah.
could be as simple as, I'm making my kid breakfast, and maybe I
Mhm.
accidentally pick off 2 bananas instead of 1, and then a second later, he's like, "Mom, I want another banana," and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
perfect, because I already grabbed 2. Somehow I knew that already."
Yeah, yeah, I get that 100%. Little things like that all day. For me, lately, it's been manifesting more as, like, with people and relationships, like you said,
Yeah.
like, you think about someone and they call, or
Mhm.
but I think it just, if we're in tune and in tandem with our intuition, it helps us navigate life on a completely different level, right?
Right.
So if we wanna live at this level, I don't like saying it like that, but in this zone, in this space where we are using our intuition, how do we do that? Like, how would you say, is it available to anyone? Let's first say that. Like, how do
Yes,
you build your intuition?
100% is available to everybody. I
Mm,
think that is one of the great things, about the fact that I was kind of raised in it is I'm not fighting the uphill battle of deprogramming myself,
yeah, yeah,
which is really nice.
especially
But
church culture, and yeah.
yeah, mhm. I I think it really comes from knowing yourself is what I would say is the first step, because intuition is so deeply personal. Your intuition might not look the same as someone else's intuition, and it might not be telling you the same thing
Mm,
as your friend. So, because you're 2 different people on 2 different life paths, and maybe you're connecting and merging at that moment, maybe you have like a soul connection, that still doesn't mean that what's right for you is right for that person. So,
yeah.
it is so inside of you that I think the first step is really to understand who you are,
Mm,
to understand, like, what your path is, and getting to know that. But as you're understanding, and as you're doing those intro little baby steps towards getting to into your intuition, you're still kind of using it at the same time. I feel like intuition is one of those weird things where it's not like you have to follow a 10-step, regimen, and then at the end, boom, you have your intuition. You have it all along. It's just you start to get more and more comfortable with listening to it and understanding it, and
yeah.
discerning it from other voices that might be playing in your head. Like maybe your mom lives rent free in your head like mine does. So it's like you just start to you just
So good. No, I want to talk about this too, because
yeah.
one, there's a few points here that are really important. Again, where Lisa and Jen have these like modalities, like science, we can study. It's facts. Science, intuition, like they say, this life is the illusion, right? Like the
Mhm.
real reality is on the other side, and what we're in isn't just a dream. Like our reality is the illusion. Like that's what
Right.
Buddhism and Hinduism. But this idea of where they have these like more methodical approaches that have like a cause and effect, intuition most often can't be proven. It
Yeah.
can't be. um, you may get a hit that, like you said, it's not right for me, but you don't know why. And you just got to trust it, because one of the quickest ways to diminish your intuition is by ignoring those promptings. And it's just that simple. It's like a muscle at the gym. If you
Yeah.
ignore, you're going to silence that voice over time.
Mhm.
You're going to make it more passive. It'll
Right.
still be there, but it won't be as strong. And like, perfect example, I was uh I was talking to a gentleman, and something was off. My intuition was hitting, and I couldn't prove it, but something's off. So let it unfold, because I'm not a crazy person. I'm not going to accuse anyone of, even though I know
Yeah.
what I know, right? Because my
Yeah.
gut doesn't lie.
Mhm.
And I asked for a sign, and sure enough, I got my sign the next day where I knew I had to end it. It's stuff like that. It's the honoring where you're coming from. I really think that's important too, like you were saying, um, building it and activating it, and like, okay, let's talk more to that. How does that look? Like, how do you build it?
I would say it's a little bit trial and error.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
yeah,
It's
because
a
like you said,
process.
there's no way to prove it. And so maybe you could keep a log and try, but I think that takes a lot of awareness. I think that takes a lot, and maybe you have it. So if you were to
Journaling helps
say
here. Journaling's a
journaling.
big, yeah, because when you go through these experiences, you can come back to them and you're like, "Oh, shit, that one time." Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to kind of like start a log, for example, and say, okay, on this date, this time, I had a feeling that I should walk home instead.
Dreams.
Oh,
Dreams.
dreams, for sure, dreams.
Mhm.
Um, and just like pop that in there. Did you follow it? Follow it.
Mhm.
Like actually do it. If you have that thought that comes in your head and you're like, oh, that's weird. I don't normally do this. This is out of my norm, but I'm getting this feeling that I should walk home. And however that comes to you, it could be internal, it could be your friend saying, "Oh, I think I'm going to walk home today." And you're like, "Oh," like it could be just if you notice it and it stands out to you for a reason, it's standing out to you,
So
you
bringing
know?
that awareness, sitting with
Yes.
that awareness of just being
Mhm.
mindful of these impressions. Okay.
Mhm.
So another big point, like I want to come back to, often our intuition is simple. It's the small, still voice. And you hear
Yeah.
this, it's so trite, but really it's so that's the powerful piece where anxiety is like you feel anxious, you feel tense, you feel intuition doesn't make you feel that way. It's constant and it's
Yeah.
steady, but it's like, "Hey, he's not good for you.
Mhm. Mhm.
Hey, you shouldn't let her talk to you that way." Like,
Yeah.
those little
Yeah.
things. Set a boundary. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes,
it's
exactly. Well, and I also find because, I am prone to anxiety, so prone to anxiety. When I'm in those anxious moments, I can't hear my intuition anymore.
yes.
Through through trial and error, I've noticed the difference between listening when I'm still and attempting to listen in a moment of anxiety when I have to make a last minute decision or whatever. I mean, that was something I had to learn. I
Yeah.
didn't know that right off the bat. So,
Yeah.
in a moment of, like I'm trying to think of there was when I first moved down here, we had a moving truck, and, long story short, ended up in a situation where the moving truck was stuck between, um, those, like, little posts? They're like a half circle or whatever,
Mhm.
on the gas station pump?
Yep.
They're, like, round or whatever, and they're, like,
Yeah.
cement. So that got stuck between the wheel wall and the wheel of the moving truck because my mom was driving it and she jumped the curb when she, like, turned in, the little
It just
curb
popped it in right. Yeah.
Mhm, and I was trying so hard to because, of course, when I'm with my mom is when I'm trying to be more in tune too, because that's, like, how she operates so naturally. So, I was just, like, trying so hard to listen about what we needed to do next, and it was just not coming to me, and my mom got us
But
out of
that's
it,
a
thank
great
God.
example because
Yeah,
sometimes a lot of time once you develop, it will come through. Like, I've done it
yes,
with my keys, like, "Where are my keys at?"
mhm,
"Oh, I left them over here near the
yes,
couch." Like,
mhm,
it sounds
and
silly, but
And my mom was only and, it's funny because, like, we can't do it for ourselves, right? But, like, my mom was able to do that in that moment because she was like, "Okay, let me just listen," and, like, it was just a matter of, like, chance events that got us out of it. We didn't have to pay any extra, I didn't get charged anything, like,
Mhm.
it was just such a perfect sequence of events that got us out, and it was her listening to her instinct and her intuition of
Yeah.
saying, "Okay, I can trust this person." The funniest thing is she'll anytime she tells, like, the longer version of the story, she's like, "And then I looked at a tree and I saw a piece of wood that just said Jesus, and I knew." And I'm like,
I get that though, like
"Mom!" But
y
it is true. I mean, like,
it's
that
for her. That is
yes.
her intuition,
Right.
that is her guidance, her message, her peace, and that's how spirit talks to all of us, right? Like,
Yes.
we develop our own relationship with your intuition is gonna speak to you completely different than mine. I could see a cloud and a bird go by at the right moment, and I'm like, we need to go this way.
Yes.
Like,
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. Like,
uh,
I'm full tears, having a panic attack,
uh-huh.
and my mom's trying to tell me that she saw a sign that said Jesus, and that's supposed to make me feel better, and
Yeah.
I'm, like,
Everything's gonna
freaking
work out.
out.
And don't you hate it when you're there and, like, people just get that sense of euphoric peace and you're like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
and I've
okay, good
experienced
for
the
you."
opposite, like,
Yes,
I've been
yes.
in situations where
Mhm.
I'm not the person it's going to directly affect, and I can navigate it out for us because I can,
Yes.
disconnect a little bit, try and find that calm, but in that moment, because it was directly affecting me, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I love that. That is such a perfect example. Okay,
Mhm.
so building intuition, what are some more practical ways? Let's talk about you grew up in a household that fostered your intuitive growth, which I think is uncommon for most
Yeah.
people.
Mhm.
Um, again, everyone's experience is different, but whether you come from a very like atheistic family, like science, and I
Mhm.
get it, but it just denies that part. I grew up in the church, like you said, it's very suppressive, and there's a lot of um, un- the conditioning has to be worked through, you know. So you grew up in a household. How did your mom foster these intuitive gifts, like grow this awareness within you?
She tried to get me to feel my feelings on things. That was how it
Feelings.
started when I was a kid, and also paying attention to my dreams because she noticed that I had, premonition dreams. So, she started to kind of get me to pay a little bit more attention to my dreams. I started to understand the different feelings, behind different dreams. So premonition dreams for me, and I think across the board have a different vibe to them. Like you can tell the difference. Um, and so starting to pay attention to that and starting to pay attention to my emotions, I feel like I became hyper aware of how things made me feel. And
I am so glad you
growing
brought this up. This is such, again, a vital point. You're hitting it out of the park.
Mhm,
Intuition, again, where these other systems are very I won't say scientific because I know people are going to roll their eyes, but
mhm,
again, there's a process to studying. Intuition is all based in feeling and
mhm.
emotion, which we, I think, are trained to distrust because
Yeah,
we aren't our feelings, right? But our feelings are indicators. They're they're voices that move us. They're the vehicles that teach us where to go, right? Like,
yeah,
I'm angry, that means a boundary's been crossed. I love you means like like in a healthy way. We can get
yeah,
into
yeah.
that in another
Oh,
podcast.
yeah.
But no, let's talk about that more too. The only way to build your intuition is by paying attention and tuning into how you feel. So if you're like a lot of us where you compartmentalize, I'm very cerebral. I don't give a lot of time to feelings in the past.
Mhm.
Now, the only way to to build my intuition is to do the work by sitting in my feelings, which is uncomfortable. Where
Yeah,
you enjoy it.
I do.
Like you and my sister.
Yeah. It's I really like something Lisa said really stuck out to me when we were talking Enneagram. Uh, she said because all 9 numbers, um, go into different triads, so there's 3 different groups within the 9. They all have a different processing center. So you have the mind triad, the head triad, the heart triad, the feeling
Yeah.
triad, and the gut triad.
Mm,
And she said something so poignant because we all respect, I guess, logic more than anything else. I think collectively, we all look for that
big time.
reasoning. Mhm. And she said it only that logic center only takes up a third.
Yeah. Wow, that say it again. Yeah, it's only a
Yeah.
part.
And I when she
Mind, body,
said that,
spirit. Yes. Now
yeah,
you're
I
talking.
was like, oh, and she's like, we all have a tendency to, you know, over, I guess, underscore logic, but it's only a third of what should be making up,
Yeah.
the whole because some people are going to process more through their heart, some people are going to process more through their gut. And all three of those things have a place and should all be equally weighted, but they're
Yeah.
not. Logic is definitely weighted more in our
What are the
society.
3? Logic, heart, and what was the 3rd?
Gut,
Gut, like
instinct.
instinct. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's so powerful because
Hmm.
we all know like ourselves, but others too. Like someone may, be a really good partner in one aspect, but they don't access their emotions, and so there's a growth area there. Or we may need, yeah, just to build, and it's all about balance, right? To
Yes.
be a complete full person, you have to have your mind, but you can listen to your mind, but if you don't have your heart, if it doesn't resonate with your heart, then it's a no usually. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
everything's got to be in alignment to be healthy and whole. I
Right.
love this too because I talk about the chakras a lot and these energy centers in the body and meditation and yoga. Uh, but we all have these centers, but the first three are the base or the lower chakras, which deal with body, like being present, being grounded in the world, like the material. And then you have the upper chakras, which are all about intuition, communication, energy, thought, like the higher levels, interdimensional, like the other.
Mhm.
But it's the heart chakra that brings the bridge between the two. I can't exist completely in one or the other. If you're too lofty, then nothing materializes. You can't get anything done.
Right.
If I'm only in the world doing stuff, then I'm devoid and I can't
Mhm.
manifest. So it's
Yeah.
that heart space that's the magnet and that keeps us in be yeah, I love it. Oh my God, we can
Yeah.
go. So
I
feelings,
know.
heart.
Feelings, yeah. I know.
I know that's
So
really important, I think. So
mhm.
intuition is feeling based. Our feelings
Yes.
guide us in building our intuition.
Yes. Because
Nice.
sometimes, and this is kind of how my mom framed it when I was younger, sometimes you might feel a certain way that doesn't make sense. That might be
Yeah.
your intuition talking to you. So if you're in a like I said before, if you're in a situation where you shouldn't feel any type of way and you start to, that is a little, hey, pay attention to this. And it doesn't mean, oh my gosh, I have to get my things and leave right now.
Yeah.
Sometimes it just means, hey, listen up, pay
Yeah.
attention. And sometimes it does mean, hey, get your shit and get out.
Right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times with people, when we're dealing with people, they're telling you who they are. Listen,
Yeah.
like, take notice.
Yes.
Like that, if it hits funny, again, it's that peace, that nudge. One of my favorite scriptures is be led by peace. And that's one of those cosmic truths in
Mhm.
the warped Christian tradition. But it's
Yeah.
that simple, be led by peace. What does
Mhm.
it hits funny. That's off. Why? Take notice, be curious. They're telling you who they are. Like Maya Angelou said, listen, when people
Yes.
tell you who they are.
Mhm.
Um, okay, I love where we're going with this. So, how do you trust your feelings? I think you already hit it a little on the head when you said it's a trial and error process
Yeah.
because we also got to be careful. Our feelings, especially when we're working through our damage and like acknowledging, our wounds and our past traumas that trigger us, distinguishing between our feelings sometimes and a false lead. Like how have you
Mhm.
navigated that a little? Like how do you tell the difference?
Ooh, how do you tell the difference, Dave?
Because I think
That
that's what keeps a lot of us from stepping into our intuition. We don't
yes,
trust ourselves. We don't
and it can
trust
scare
our
you
feelings.
away, for
Big time. And
sure,
if you have too many
for sure.
false leads or you uh,
Mhm.
like we all had the relationship things where you dive in and you're like, "Oh, I was really wrong about
Oh,
these feelings."
what happened? Yeah.
Yeah.
Turns out I have some, relationship trauma. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
you don't know until you get there, and I think being like, "Hey, if something feels off, pay attention,
Listen to your
listen to that."
body. Your
Yeah.
body is your greatest teacher. Mhm.
As an adult, if you that's where these other tools come in to really get to know yourself because you need to know what your traumas are. And if you're in a dangerous area where for example, that you have a trauma around rejection and that you are hypersensitive to rejection and to the point where you might start to anticipate it even before it's happened, or you might start to read into something and you're thinking someone's going to reject you before they even ever do, and they might not ever.
Yeah.
um you need to start to distinguish between, okay, whew, I'm in an area where I'm going to be really sensitive to if this person is going to, or if I'm going to perceive that this person might reject
Yeah.
me. So this is the danger area where I need to really key in
Which is
the
usually our
difference.
mind, right? Our mind
Yes.
space versus that gut space or heart
Yes.
space. Yeah.
You need to determine how that feels for you.
Yeah.
So I might tell you, okay, when I start to over analyze something, I'm stepping out of my intuition. When
Mhm.
I when
That's
I
that's
can
so good.
yeah. if I can just gut instinct, 'cause I am in the gut triad and then Enneagram, but if I can just like first,
Mm,
I can normally nail it in the first go. So it's like my first instinct on something is normally correct. And for as long as I can, when I'm navigating something that isn't a trauma zone for me, as long as I can stay in that truth where
mm,
I knew the truth right in the very beginning, as long as I can just stay in that, I'm okay.
yeah.
But staying in that is difficult. That's where as adults we have to like really hone and practice and do that trial and error work, and journaling probably helps a lot with that.
And that you're yes, 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 you're hitting it because they even say like in school, the test taking when you're on your Scantron and you're like filling it in, it's usually the first answer that you're drawn to that is the right one. If you start to
Yeah.
second guess it, that's when you like it's we all have that. I think we all are gut-based people. And if we
Mhm.
go with our gut, yeah, sometimes it's gonna be wrong, but
Mhm.
your first impression, the first thing that comes to mind is usually the first thing. Usually, again, and this, like you said, getting to know yourself and working through the more you know yourself, the more balanced and complete, like not
Yeah.
complete, but like the more grounded you'll be
Mhm.
in that decision. That's so good. No, I love that. Okay, so let's take this to then you mentioned tools, so we talked about Enneagram and astrology, but
Mhm.
where those are systems, like what tools would you use to build intuition? And what did again, back to your family of origin, I guess, in your household, what did when you say tools?
We use tarot.
Tarot? Okay.
Mhm. So we use tarot cards and oracle cards, and another deck that I'm not really sure where what it falls into, but there's a lot of different types of things that
Mm.
tools that you can use. And I think, where we're going is they're called divination tools, which
Mhm.
can sound a
Ooh.
little scary.
Yeah.
Uh
Divination, now we're getting out
mhm.
there.
Yeah. And even I kind of reject that a little
Mhm,
bit, only because I think divination, I think Harry Potter, I think Trelawney, and I
mhm.
think, oh, you're gonna,
But
the
they got the
grim.
prophecy, like,
They got
I'm
the
just saying.
prophecy, right. And but that's exactly what I'm talking about. You hear divination and you think I think of, her reading those tea leaves and it's like, "Oh, the grim." And then the grim carries a connotation and you think
Yes.
it's kinda like pulling the death card.
Like the Greeks, like self-fulfilling prophecies, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a danger to
And
it, yeah.
right. And I think also going in to tarot or any tool, runes, a pendulum, whatever, any divination tool, I don't think the point is to go in and say, um, tell me what's going to happen with this person.
Yes.
I think the
Yes.
point is um, guidance, not the answer. And I think that that's where we get misled a lot in divination. It's
Yes.
like, am I going to get married this year? Well,
You can't ask questions like that. No.
right.
I mean,
And,
you
and I,
can, but we run the danger with these because these are mirrors. All these things that we're using. This is a great sidebar, and we can actually come back to this when we talk about
yeah,
tarot in our later
yeah.
podcasts. But
Hmm.
you got to remember these items, these tools are matching your energy. They're picking up. They're working with your energy. They're just mirrors. They're tools.
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
inanimate things. But what is happening is you're using your energy to create the experience, the message, right? So it's
Right.
your subconscious creating patterns in essence is how I look at it, or your higher self, again, the ether, the
Yeah.
spirit, your
Hmm.
guides. They're using these tools. So if you walk into a ritual or if you sit down with your cards, I've done this several times where I'm head over heels with someone. Is he it? Is he the one? Is this it? Like I'm bringing that uh, I'm injecting what I want onto those cards, that my perception, my what I'm hoping for, that's gonna alter the reading of it. That's gonna alter, uh, the outcome of what the card you're gonna get what you want. So it's good to have these rituals. I like that you said this because it's so important. If you are gonna work with these tools, to come in with a clean energy or a neutral energy, right?
Hmm.
I like to go with a prayer that's like, or a meditation. Show me what I need to know for me and my highest good and the highest good of all, right?
Yeah.
Just that vessel mindset, like empty yourself out, let the ego go. I'm so glad you said that because people do get false senses like, well, how could I have been so wrong in these cards?
Yeah.
Excellent
Mhm.
point. Excellent point.
Mhm.
How do you do that? How
Well,
do you?
right. Oh, it's a
Yeah,
work in progress for
it
sure. It
is.
depends. It depends. I think going in and with the pursuit of knowledge, is different than going in for the pursuit of a specific
Yeah.
answer. I
What do I
find
need to know? Yeah.
yes. Um, how can I make something happen? Things like that is I don't think I'm not saying that questions like, "Is this the right thing for me?" is
Yeah.
bad. That's not a bad question. I just think if you're expecting a cut and dry answer,
They
that's
say
where it gets
they always say no yes or no questions, right?
right.
Like flush it out. Like if I so say I have my cards, if I if I am to start dating this person, will it have a good outcome or what things
Mhm.
should I be aware of to know about with that kind of thing, like
Right.
open-ended questions, so you allow spirit to bring that mirror up in different ways, like it could be
Mhm.
emotion, it could be intellectual, it could be financial, it could be all these aspects that you're not even
Mhm.
considering.
Right.
Mm,
Right. It's all about your intention and your energy that
yeah,
you're bringing in. So, that's, I guess, why I don't like divination because I
yeah,
think I'm not going to a fortune teller to tell me when I'm gonna meet the love of my life. I am and you might find a way to ask that, but it might be through a different series of questions because
yeah.
maybe you haven't met someone because you need to work on yourself or
Boom.
yeah,
It's coming. It will come, but you gotta do the work yourself, and that's, again, focusing on you and making yourself you hit it. You hit it, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, divination is a weird thing for me, but I understand that these things are called divination tools. So,
Yes, but really, there's tools to help us look inward and to,
yes.
explore the subconscious, right? The
Yes.
deeper knowing.
But
Okay,
to go
so
back to
yeah, go
yeah,
for it.
what you were saying, sorry. We used it to listen. So tarot, has its own system, but we were usually trying to listen to a message, and that is a branch of intuition. So, trying to
Like, give an example of,
channel.
yeah, channel. Oh, yeah, like, when you're trying to listen for a message, what does that mean? Yeah.
So, if we're pulling a the one that I'll give, that's the most simplistic, I think. It's the deck that I'm not really sure if it fits into Oracle or if it's its own category, but and you've experienced these. These are my animal cards, and I
Mm,
call them lesson cards. They're the first deck I ever did anything with as a kid. And the way that I was introduced to them is, it's the only thing I was allowed to do. And then my mom had her tarot deck that, she did whatever with. But I would pull, she would always spread them out and then I would put my hand over them and like you act like there's a string, like she explained all these things to me, like, and she like pulled it out. So she would like hold my hand and she's like, there's a string coming out of your hand and it's connected to one of these cards. Which one is it? You got to put your hand over,
oh,
you got to
that's real the
feel.
visualization and
Yeah.
feeling, yes.
And so you got to feel which card is pulling to
Mm,
you. And so then you like pull it out. And it's an animal deck, and each animal tells you a lesson. So when I was young, and I'm sure probably happened to me a lot more even now, it's still a lesson I haven't fully learned, is patience. So
mm.
the ant was the card that was just like permanently attached to me. And no matter what I did, I pulled it so much when I was a kid. And my mom was like, "Oh, you're still working on the patience." Yeah. I'm 7, okay? Like, I'm trying. But
I'm
it's
7.
it's like
Yeah, mom, 7, 7.
mhm, yeah. So so it's like, you're connecting to God, the universe, a higher power, whatever, but that's the message that's coming to you right now.
For
For
that
that
moment,
moment,
yeah,
hey, you
yeah,
need to focus a little bit more on patience.
and it can give you direction for the future.
Yes.
I like that we usually in typical drawings, again, this is general, there's
Mhm,
3 card pulls, and it's
mhm,
past, present, future, or the anchor card, where we're coming from is where what got us to the present. In the future, even though again you look at it as divination, I think it's just really, it's just there's cause and effect. So if you
Yes.
continue on this path, it's not about telling your future, it's just it could lead this way. And if you
Mhm.
look at it that way, like they're just guideposts, like, yeah, you could go this way, but free will, there's a
Yeah,
lot of factors, but again, just again, a perception of what could be, you know?
right.
It's not what does Jenny always say, with astrology? It's not predictive? Is that how she says it?
Yeah, it's not prescriptive, I think is what she says. Is it predictive or
Yes.
prescriptive? One of those.
But yeah, you can't use these systems to, you know, divine your future, but at the same time, there's certain energies at play, which the cards can reveal too, or runes can, all these things that can help guide you to your highest good, your highest goals,
Yeah.
what's in alignment for you.
Mhm.
Okay, channeling, again, I think this is a very curious word because when I think a lot of us, because of Hollywood, when we think channeling, I think of like that scene in Insidious where she's like, I need to go to the other realm. And she puts
Yeah.
on that big, like, BDSM mask and she's like, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I still think about that table scene. Have you seen Insidious?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So the mom's at the broad daylight and it's that demon behind her.
Yeah.
I still jump and I know it's coming. Oh,
Yeah. Mhm.
masterful. Anyway, channeling. What's channeling? Because
Yeah.
there's a
I was
few
gonna
ways to
say,
go with this.
I this is just I always think of Madame Leota.
Yes, no. D trauma, Disney trauma.
Uh-huh. Uh, but
Just the floating head.
yeah, and a crystal
With a
ball, like,
rhyme,
that's what I
with a
think of.
rhyme.
Yeah, yes, of
Tap.
course, it's a rhyme, yeah. Oh, man. So, channeling for me is just listening. So,
Listening. Okay.
if you flip over a card, a tarot card or whatever, and you see an image, and you just sit in the still and the quiet
Mm,
and listen to what's coming to you. And of course, that card has a meaning also.
mhm,
Um, Growing up, we didn't focus so much on the meaning. We literally used the card as a channel. So
mm,
it was more so to hear what was trying to be told. So we didn't do like spreads or things like that. It was just you pull a card until if you're trying to work through a situation, you pull a card until the message is over. And usually it's not that many because you're just waiting for the message. And I think you can get to a point eventually where you don't even need the cards anymore and you just need to sit in the still and
yeah,
just listen to the message, right?
in meditation it
But
comes to. Mm,
yes, but I think especially as a beginner tool to try and start listening to your intuition and start understanding how those connections happen for you, a divination tool
mm.
could do that for
Big
you.
time. You gotta start
Mhm.
somewhere. No,
Right.
and these are like gateway intuition devices. Yeah. Uh, I love that.
Yeah.
That is the goal, I would say, for a lot of us is to get to that point where it's just a knowing. It's
Yeah.
just you exist and you know what you need. And
Mhm.
it's in the stillness, and that's another great point. Like, the only way, unfortunately, and we're in a society and a time where everything's rush, rush, go, go, like instant gratification. This stuff doesn't come easily. It is work in essence. Like, you
Mhm.
have to do the work, you have to sit down, you have to be in the silence, which is uncomfortable for a lot of us. But
Yeah.
that's how we do it, right? That's
Yeah.
how,
Yeah.
yeah.
You have
Um,
to be able to distinguish between all your voices in there.
yeah. Oh, I love this. So channeling, for psychics, I like that application too because mediums really what they're doing is they're just sitting down and opening themselves up to listen to the other side. So
Yeah.
same thing. It's just listening to our intuition more so with these tools.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, so we built so the ultimate, I guess let's bring this back to our viewers and why intuition is so important to build, to work on. The It's all about clarity, right? Again, to
Yeah.
navigate.
Life is hard enough, you
Mhm.
know? Uh, there are so many questions that we're riddled with just in day to day. I think really leaning into your intuition takes away a good chunk of them.
Yeah,
And that doesn't mean you're not
realizing
left with any.
yeah, realizing you're
Mhm.
connected to something bigger, like
Yes.
all the knowledge of the universe is there if we
Mhm.
get to it, you know?
Yeah. And because it can be so simple, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that connecting to your intuition doesn't mean that you're losing grip on reality.
Mhm.
If anything, you're
Just the
gaining a
opposite. Yes.
stronger grip on reality and specifically your reality.
Yeah. That's beautifully put. I really yes, it allows us to navigate our experience, our life, and to be better for
Mhm.
ourselves and those around us. Mm. Okay, so let's do a little like homework. I think if someone's listening, what do you recommend? Like, I I want to learn about intuition, and I want to build my intuition. What would you recommend for me?
Mhm.
What would I
I
do?
would say start listening to all the little voices that are telling you to do something. Don't listen to the intrusive thoughts. Don't do that. But listen to, if you're driving and you think, "Oh, I should take this other way to work." Do it.
Yeah.
See what happens. Um, and start to just kind of keep a mental or maybe a physical log of what's happening. Journal. Start to get to know yourself. Maybe venture into these other tools if you feel like you have a
What
hard
tool would
time
you
discerning.
what would you start with?
Me personally, Enneagram, I think it's simpler. I
Yeah.
think it's simpler than astrology. Astrology is very complicated, but
Okay.
start with anything. I mean, it can be literally anything. It does not have to be one of our main tools here within our core four, but if Myers Briggs is calling to you, that could also be your intuition.
Follow your gut.
Find,
Yeah.
yeah, follow
Mhm.
your gut. Get to know yourself. I would say that the groundwork, really the foundation is getting to know yourself. And then from there, starting to identify what your intuition sounds like and how it differs from other things playing in your head.
Mhm.
Like I said, maybe a parent lives rent free in your head. Maybe you have
Mm.
your boss in your ear too much. Maybe your friend is like got a really strong energy and you can't tell the difference between, you know, their voice and your voice. Like you've really got to get in there and be like, what is influencing me? What is like just me?
Yes.
Just learn yourself,
Your
and
own
that's a good place
energy.
to start.
Yeah. Yes. Your own being solid in who you are and what you know for sure.
Mhm.
I think it's so important to say that you need to ask. Like there, this I know this is out there for a lot of people, but you got to be open minded.
Yeah.
Play with it. Be curious. Just see what like again. It's not like a psychosis. Like just be
Yeah.
open and ask. I think that's the first one. Spirit's always there. It's always wanting to talk to your higher self again. All these, it's all of it's connected. It wants to guide you. It wants to show you the way. And if
Mhm.
you ask, it will show up. And that's where you
Mhm.
start. So, like you're saying in the cart, just ask for these little things, ask for these signs, ask for direction. It's that simple because it will
Yes.
show up. It's just getting yourself to a point where you can hear it,
Mhm.
making
And
space for it.
yes, and pay attention where your body is already doing it.
Yes, feeling, back to feeling.
Mhm.
Great. Yes. And
Mhm.
so how do you feel when it hits you, when something happens, when you a situation, where do you feel it in your body? Chest, gut, tense, like light, open?
Yeah.
Mm.
And when we're in autopilot in our routine, also pay attention to weird ways that you deviate.
Yeah.
Because when you're in autopilot, I think is another way for you to kind of be loosely connected without
Yes.
even really
Like
trying because you're
chopping
just kinda.
vegetables or doing folding
Mhm.
laundry, that kind of walking.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, just start to notice. I would say in tandem with getting to know yourself, just start to notice all the ways that you might already be doing it.
Yeah. Oh,
Mhm.
this is exciting. And leave us some comments. Like, let us know. Talk to us. We want this to be a conversation. I am so thankful for you, Daniela. Thank you so much for this. I I cannot wait to hear people's experiences through this. Like, let us
Yeah.
know. Like, this is a journey, and it's all we're doing this together, and that's the point of all this. So,
Yes.
we'd love to hear from you if you have some experiences. If you got a weird intuitive hit, let us know. We'd love to
Yeah.
share this and like
Mhm.
this is how we validate each other and like grow this. So,
Mhm.
mm, is there anything else you would like to leave when we're ending
You
this
know,
conversation?
there is one thing. When
Yeah.
I say trial and error, start low stakes.
Yeah. Lotto, do not go lotto. Please
No,
don't do no
low
Hard Rock.
stakes. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Low stakes, what's low stakes? Just little things like, "What should
Little
I
things.
eat?" kinda
Mhm.
thing, or
Yeah.
what's that look like
Well,
for you?
right, and the thing that keeps popping into my head is, like, that breakfast example with my kid. It's like,
Yeah,
if you reached into the freezer because you know you're about to cook dinner and you are an autopilot and you reach for something without thinking about it and it's not what you were intending to make, and then all
interesting.
of a sudden your kid is like, "Hey, instead of spaghetti, can we have so and so?" And you're like, "Oh, well, I'm already
Go
holding
with
it."
it.
It's just pay attention to those really low stakes things that you're just kind of already doing, and also start to kind of test your voice in low stakes ways.
Mhm. Yeah, in conversations with people, yeah, just
Yeah.
listen, be aware.
Mhm.
Give it space. I love this. Thank you so much. We will see you guys soon.
Yeah.
We'll definitely follow up with another like a deeper dive into like tarot and oracle cards because I
Yes.
that's fascinates me. But how to build your intuition with these specific modalities too. So
Mhm.
hope you have a good week. We'll see you
You
soon.
too. Bye.
Thanks for joining us in the treehouse today. If you enjoyed your time here, can you do us one little favor and send this episode over to someone else who might need to hear it? We love ratings, reviews, and recommendations. We appreciate you so much. Have a gorgeous day.